Today I'm ranking more of the dumbest mistakes serial killers ever made. The tiers are simple. S tier, historically stupid. A tier, deeply embarrassing. B tier, you had one job. F tier, too competent to be funny. It's gonna be really hard to top BTK from episode 1, sending the floppy disk.
Idiot!
If you haven't seen that video, you might want to check it out. But we got some pretty good contenders, I gotta say. So these are a little bit lesser known guys, but the stories are great. Let's get into it. Randy Kraft. So I almost feel like Randy Kraft should almost not be allowed in this episode because his mistake is too perfect. So in the early hours of May 14th, 1983, California Highway Patrol officers spotted a car weaving in its lane on Interstate 5. That driver was Randy Kraft. On the passenger seat was Terry Lee Gambrell. Guy was like a young Marine. Okay, no big deal. So what was the deal with this Marine? Was he his accomplice or something? No. Here's the thing. Gambrell was just dead. Strapped in to the passenger seat, seatbelt and everything. I mean, not even the trunk. At least Rifkin had his body in the trunk. Remember Rifkin from the last episode? Guy was pulled over for no plates on his truck and they discovered that he had a body in the trunk. Yeah, that moron.
Just hanging out, killing time.
Randy Kraft heard Rifkin's story and said, hold my beer. This guy had the body strapped into the passenger seat like he was using the fucking carpool lane or something. At least Bundy, old piss pants Bundy, at least he was only driving drunk with a kill kit in the car, not like a body. And Jesus, man, one crime at a time. So he goes straight into S tier. I mean, in episode 1 of this, I had Rifkin in S tier, and I actually think this tops Rifkin. It's historically stupid. This should be preserved in a museum.
It belongs in a museum.
Small plaque underneath. Idiot. Next up, John Wayne Gacy. Yeah, there's a name you all know. Everybody knows Gacy. But if you don't for some reason, John Wayne Gacy murdered 33 young men and boys during the 1970s. 29 bodies were ultimately found buried underneath his home. Now I'm aware that there's nothing funny about that sentence. There's nothing light about Gacy's crimes, but the logistical decision deserves examination. Now, there are cases where investigators need to search across multiple states. There's cases where the killer moves constantly, changing methods, changes cities, and leaves very little behind. Then there's Gacy. Everything you need, right beneath the floor. That guy buried body after body beneath his own house, his own property. His actual home address, not a forest, not some abandoned structure. He didn't take him out on a boat. No, he's just like, just in my basement, good enough. Do not convert your home into the physical archive of your crimes. And don't get started on the whole Gacy didn't act alone garbage. Or that he was part of some ring with like the Candyman. Or that the smell was just from his little Lapsapso dog or whatever the fuck you call him. Oh, wait, sorry. That was Gacy's excuse. That was Gacy's excuse for the smell.
My little Lhasa Apso was in the house doing his business on the paper, and then you can imagine what it smells like if you go into a closed room and when the heat came on.
Imagine actually telling the police that. Actually thinking that is a good excuse. Do you guys know? I guess you don't. I don't either, really. But the smell of a dead body, not only one, 30, and you think you can tell the police that it was just because your tiny dog peed on the floor in the kitchen? It's wildly absurd that he thought that was a good excuse. This belongs in B tier rather than S tier because Gacy did evade detection for years. He cultivated a public persona, shook hands with the First Lady for God's sakes. Guy was embedded in the community. But no, he absolutely did not ever kill anyone dressed as a clown. Get that out of your head. He wasn't Pennywise.
I'll kill you all!
I'm just waiting for you guys to attack me, or some of you to go after me in the comments that yes, he was part of a ring. He definitely didn't act alone. Bring it on down below. Let's go. Arthur Shawcross. Arthur Shawcross murdered 11 women in the Rochester, New York area between 1988 and 1990 after previously serving time for killings committed in the 1970s. And the way police closed in on him is one of those just classic serial killer mistakes that keeps appearing in different forms. Police discovered the body of one of the victims through aerial surveillance near Salmon Creek. Shawcross was then spotted near the area around the dump site, standing close to his vehicle on a bridge. Now, here's where it gets kind of, let's call it deeply embarrassing. Different reports have it done different ways. I've heard it several ways. But that he's not just standing on the bridge, that he's pissing off the bridge, urinating off the bridge onto the body down below. Another account has him, masturbating on the bridge. Police chopper spots him doing this. They're just like, surveilling the area where there's been a murder and, hey, what's that down there? Who's that man standing on the bridge jerking off? Let's get down and question him. I mean, how didn't he hear it coming? He must have been so into himself at that moment, so into it. He's tuned out a helicopter above. A, don't go back to the scene of the crime like that. B, if you're going to, you think you'd be at least a little bit heightened, a little bit careful, not just standing in the middle of a bridge jerking off. I mean, you'd think that after committing multiple murders before and already serving time earlier on, that you might develop a basic understanding of the phrase, like, leave the area. But no, not old Artie Shawcross. Some killers have this intense self-destructive need to orbit their own crimes, I guess, So Shawcross, he's gonna go an 8 here. It's deeply embarrassing. Not just because he was dumb enough to go back, but because of what he was doing when the police spotted him with a helicopter. And it's not quite S tier, it's not quite as dumb as the guys with the bodies strapped in the passenger seat. It's not that dumb, but it's pretty vintage stupid. A classic indeed. So yeah, A tier. Next up, we got Maury Travis. So Dennis Rader's floppy disk disaster from the first episode, like I said, it's very difficult to beat, but Maury here gives it a run for its money. So Travis murdered women in the St. Louis area and left the bodies in remote locations. In 2002, after the St. Louis Post published a story about one of the victims, Travis sent a letter to the reporter. He included a computer-generated map pointing toward human remains. Now, the letter itself didn't identify him, but investigators determined that the map had come from an online mapping service. Authorities subpoenaed information from the website, traced the activity to an IP address in Ferguson, Missouri, and arrived at the home of Maury Travis. Investigators later found extensive evidence inside the house, including videotapes documenting his crimes. Now this is BTK with a slightly different office supply. Dennis Rader, floppy disk. Maury Travis, MapQuest. See, now this is a problem with arrogance. The same person who believes he's clever enough to taunt the police is usually the exact person who should never taunt the police. Like, that the guy thinks he's like the Riddler or some shit, but he's actually forwarding his contact information. I also love how mundane the technology is.
I'm getting hacked.
It's not like a sophisticated hacking operation, not a dark web labyrinth. It's just like fucking MapQuest. This guy might as well have just sent the reporter an Evite. Travis, S tier. This is the same broad category as Rader. The compulsive need to show off, overriding the basic instinct to remain free. Next up, Philip Markoff. Okay, I need to put a little asterisk beside Philip here, because Markoff became known in the media as the Craigslist killer after he was accused of murdering one woman and linked to additional attacks involving women contacted through Craigslist. But strictly speaking, he was not a serial killer. He's accused of one murder alongside robbery and assault allegations. So he doesn't meet the usual definition. However, I have a full episode on the guy, and he's been granted a temporary guest pass for this episode because the way the investigators found him is too relevant to ignore.
A criminal nincompoop. I mean, the guy was an absolute criminal disaster.
Guy's a med student. Should know better. He used fake names and a disposable phone while contacting women through Craigslist, but investigators were able to use online information, surveillance footage, and traditional police work to identify him so quickly. Vanity Fair reported that the internet enabled the crime, but also became the principal tool used to establish the suspect's identity. The special category of criminal stupidity where somebody understands one tiny piece of technology and assumes that means that he understands all technology. Disposable phone? Good start. Fake name? Sure. But then you're contacting people online. You're walking through hotels with cameras everywhere. You're sending messages from your own IP address, your own personal computer. And when they came to his place to search his apartment, where do you think they found the murder weapon? In a hollowed out copy of Grey's Anatomy. No, not a DVD box set. Grey's Anatomy, the show, is based on the book, the medical book. The guy carved out pages like a teenager carving out pages in a book to hide a frickin' pipe. Embarrassing. A tier. Guest entry, left a digital trail while attempting to be digitally discreet. And he should know better. Like, I understand that the education system has flaws and problems, but the guy's studying to be a medical doctor. You think he's got to have some brains in his head. And then he gets like just a fucking idiot. Next up, we got Robert Maury. What's with Maury?
You are not the
That's two. Robert Maury is one of those cases that sounds like somebody made it up specifically for this episode. Maury murdered 3 women in North Carolina during the 1980s. Then, he repeatedly called a confidential tip line with information about the crimes.
This is Mike Rithgen.
Yeah, you heard that right. Not because he developed a conscience, not to give families closure or something, and not because he wanted to confess, because he wanted the reward money. Oh my God. According to the Los Angeles Times, Maury called the hotline with tips about a victim's body, called again about a burglary, and then called with information about 2 additional murder victims.
This is Dr. Jim Richards.
And obviously the hotline operators became suspicious.
This is pathetic.
When Maury collected a reward for locating a 3rd body, police photographed him. Guy ultimately collected $2,500 in rewards connected to crimes that he committed. This, ladies and gentlemen, is unbelievably stupid. The number of calls, like, I understand, like, maybe he got cocky, right? Maybe he got cocky, but maybe once you call in. But still, I mean, you're gonna risk everything, like your entire freedom for like the rest of your life for like $2,000. He'd honestly have been better off just committing the murder and then separately robbing a bank. It would have been a better bet, safer. It kind of reminds me of the Gary Ridgway case when they were looking for Ridgway, the Green River Killer at the time. They thought they were after a cab driver, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy kind of shows up. This guy here, his name's Melvin, and he just basically, the interview speaks for itself.
Did you kill all those women or what?
No, but I wish I did.
I mean, he was cleared eventually, but just an idiot, right? Robert Maury, S tier. A serial killer calling a reward line about his own victims is already enough. A serial killer doing it repeatedly, unbeatable.
I think she bought it.
Next up, Peter Sutcliffe. People have been all over me to make an episode on the Yorkshire Ripper too. Guy murdered 13 women in England and attacked several others. His arrest happened in January 1981 after police stopped him in Sheffield while he was in a car with a sex worker. A quick check revealed that the vehicle had false license plates. So he's immediately arrested and transferred for questioning. And then he ultimately confessed. Police recovered a hammer and a knife that Sutcliffe had discarded near the scene after asking to step away to urinate. So we got false plates with a potential victim in the car. What is it with these guys and cars? I mean, maybe they should just start taking the bus, or I don't know, ride a bike or something. Or at the bare minimum, make sure, like I said in the last episode, your insurance is up to date, your license plates are valid, you got the right sticker on the back. You know, just like the simplest things. Like, I'm not giving advice on how to be a killer, but it's just like, don't commit misdemeanors when you're in the process of committing felonies. This isn't a criminal mastermind, folks. This is a man asking the police, before you search the immediate area, could I quickly disappear behind that oil tank for a completely unrelated reason? It sounds like a teenager trying to hide their weed. It's just like from their parents or something when they were, I guess it was like, he just must have figured like, it's the only shot I got, I might as well try, but there was no getting away with that one. Sutcliffe had already been interviewed by the police during the broader investigation before his eventual arrest. The Yorkshire Ripper inquiry became infamous for major investigative failures, including the amount of attention placed on a hoax recording and letters. So I don't want to present this as a clean story where everything just worked out perfectly, because it absolutely did not. But Sutcliffe still deserves on a place on this list. Because when the arrest finally happened, it began with something incredibly basic. False plates. Get a bike, man. Just get a bicycle. So, A tier. Not S tier, because there's a level of tragic frustration surrounding how long the investigation took and how many chances were missed. But the final unraveling, deeply embarrassing. So, final tier list. We got F tier, too competent to be funny. Still empty. Nobody's been competent. I refuse to compliment these people. Now, last episode, people said, oh, Zodiac should go in F tier because he was never caught. Sure, but like, nah. The thing I like about doing these tier lists is that they break down the myth, right? That's the point. Serial killers are constantly turned into supernatural villains. They get the dramatic nicknames. That's an episode that's coming too. They get endless documentaries. They get framed as criminal geniuses operating on a level that ordinary people could never understand. But look at these endings. A drunk driver weaving across highway with a body in the passenger seat. The guy sending the map. License plates that are expired. The bathroom break thing. When you look at it like that, the mythology collapses really quickly. And I think that that's worth remembering too. It doesn't reduce the horror of the crimes, no. And it doesn't diminish the lives that were lost. That's still tragedy, obviously. But it does put the killer back where he belongs, not on a pedestal, just a pathetic, violent person who eventually made a mistake, thankfully. So that's it for today's tier list. I think we learned through this episode as well that I should do an episode on investigative failures and rank some of those, because sometimes the stupidity's tied in with everybody involved, right? Let me know, who else did I miss? Who else could I add, do another tier list on? Who else was caught for very dumb behavior? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you liked this episode, please don't forget to subscribe. Lots more coming. I'll see you in the next one.